ba ba doo ba dee ba ba dee boo boo ba 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 doo ba ba da.
What was I saying?
You were about to argue a point about truth.
Oh yeah, so you have introversion, extroversion, probably the most researched personality trait that exists. You know, what does it mean to say that those are true components of the human personality or human psyche? Right?
What?
What does it mean to say that they're true components?
Oh, yes. Oh, shit, dude. Yes. Thank God you brought this up. Honestly, this is something
Yeah.
I think about all the time, so it's cool that you're thinking about it too.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Because I was going to say there's a lot of personality traits that, like introversion, extroversion, very easily applicable to pretty much every human that exists.
Yeah.
You know, there are some personality traits that are not really that way. Personality traits that seem to only be, you know, specific to someone's culture or specific to these unique groups of individuals. Like, for example, open-mindedness, a part of the Big Five, we talked about that earlier, that tends to not be as prominent of a personality trait for Asian cultures, you know, collectivist cultures. So what does it mean to say that these personality traits are true?
Yeah.
You know?
It's extremely culturally specific. I do not think that the Myers-Briggs generalizes outside of Western culture. At least not in its current form. That's something that I've noticed in trying to type people from different cultures. I find it incredibly difficult, especially collectivist cultures. I find myself typing pretty much everyone that falls within a collectivist culture as being on the TIFE axis. And because TIFE is extremely collectivist, whereas TEFI, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, is extremely individualistic. And so it's difficult to translate that across cultures. I do think it only works in Western currently.
But thankfully, because we're in Western culture, you know, it'll work for us. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Just because it doesn't work for another culture, if it works for our culture, then it works for our culture. You know.
Right. And
so we shouldn't take away from it just because.
No, of course not. But I do think that it's a potential pitfall is that people they assume that it's like an implicit truth of human existence.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to recognize the limitations of a theory of personality. You know, it is a roadmap. It's not going to be 100%. It's not It's like a roadmap, but that's not completely to scale, if that makes sense.
The map is not the territory.
So the map is a good guidance to your personality. A personality theory like the Myers-Briggs is a good guidance to what your personality is. It's not going to be to scale. It's not going to be 100% accurate for 100% of the people.
Right.
It's good to recognize the pros and cons. It's good to recognize all of the good things about it, all of its limitations. And then once you recognize all of the limitations, once you recognize all of the good things, you know, that's very powerful. It gives you it gives you a really refined ability to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Which is a really powerful thing to have.
Yes, absolutely. You hit it right on the head, dude. And it kind of goes back to we were talking about like pragmatism, like philosophical pragmatism.
Yeah.
Before we figured all the technology out.
Good old William James.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do. So if you actually think about this Myers-Briggs theory, let's say, okay, well, what would make it true? Would it be somehow finding out that we've tapped into like the underlying fabric of consciousness is the Myers-Briggs? Like we've really tapped into something real. Like that would probably make it true. But how realistic is that? How likely is that? Probably very low. So I think what is more likely to be true is, hey, we figured out a pretty decent way to describe people, and it doesn't work it's not perfect, it doesn't work for every situation, but in general, it's fairly effective. It helps me understand myself, it helps me understand people, and insofar as it does what it's supposed to, it is true.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was beautifully said. It's excellent. Yeah.
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 So that's my way of addressing people when they say, Myers-Briggs isn't empirically validated. Like, yeah, it's absolutely true, but that's a criticism. That's not.
I mean, it is empirically validated. It is empirically. There's been a crap ton of research on the Myers-Briggs. It's, you know, a lot of people prefer the Big Five over Myers-Briggs. It doesn't mean that there's no validity in the Myers-Briggs.
Okay. But a lot of the criticisms about Myers-Briggs, first of all, are actually about the test, not the theory itself. And also, saying that it's not empirically validated does not mean it's not true. Proof and truth are totally different things. But in the scientific community, proof is kind of conflated with truth.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm big on Carl Jung, and this guy is too. I know both me and you, we love Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Jung is a psychoanalyst.
He's fucking psycho.
He's a psycho.
Nuts.
He's also an
Actually,
analyst.
he was nuts. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he if I remember, he kind of went a little by the end of things.
I guess I'm not surprised, but he was brilliant.
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah, of course.
He was brilliant.
Yeah.
The thing about psychodynamics and Carl Jung is that it's really hard to empirically validate Jung's theories.
Oh, come on.
and-
You're making it
yeah.
impossible to hear the
And-
video.
come on.
You're making
I
it
mean,
impossible to
we're-
hear the
come on.
video.
You're
You're making it
making it
impossible to hear
Big
the
fans of Jung.
video.
Why is that? Why would we love something so much that can't be scientifically validated? And I think you touched on the pragmatic piece a little bit. You know, Carl Jung may not have to be scientifically correct to be pragmatically useful.
Right.
Another thing is that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So the fact that it's hard to empirically validate Carl Jung doesn't mean that it's necessarily false.
That's really yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Yeah, so let's that's kind of introverted thinking, is that it's sort of this like subjective but at the same time extremely objective form of logic. It's very critical. It like incessantly analyzes the ideas that we come across through the you know, any extroverted intuition kind of pathway.
yeah,
And that's what you and I were talking about it the other day. You were like, yeah, it's like I can't not criticize like the things that I think about, and then I question
Yeah.
the question. And
Yeah.
that I really think is a perfect way of describing TI propelled by extroverted intuition, and I think that's what separates the ENTP from the ESTP. The ESTP, having extroverted sensation as their dominant, they're far more concerned with figuring out their actual environment. So their introverted thinking use is going to be a little bit less abstract, less theoretical, far more applied to understanding their immediate reality in its purest form, rather than these sort of like abstract ideas that hover about the reality.
yeah,
It's just a difference of focus.
yeah.
And a lot of the time I wish I was an ESTP, honestly, because I would actually pay attention and get things done and not just think about them. But
This reminds me of something.
I
I watched a really good TED Talk the other day.
okay.
And in the TED Talk, they were talking about procrastination. And this reminds me of what you just said just now.
Okay.
So they're talking about how they look at successful companies, specifically entrepreneurs. So people that start companies and the ones that succeed. And they look at investors who are investing in these new companies, the ones that look, if you're an investor and you're investing in a new company, you want to invest in the one that looks most promising. So what you do is maybe you know the person who's starting up the company, maybe you know a little bit about it, the backstory. And if it looks like they're working hard and they're getting crap done and they're just being vigilant and determined and they're just being very productive, then you want to invest in that company. But as it turns out, the entrepreneurs who succeed the most are the ones that do a little bit of procrastination.
Really?
Yeah. And that's because during that time of procrastination, you're not just doing nothing. You're mulling over in your mind all of
Right.
the stuff. You're doing basically what you were saying. You're looking at the broad picture, abstract nature of whatever business you're trying to start.
For sure.
And instead of just working hard to start up a business that you haven't put much thought into, the people that are doing a little bit of procrastination will get a real good sense of exactly what they're getting into before they try to start the company.
Yeah. I guess my issue is that I never get to that point of taking action. It's just all procrastination, just on a linear flat plane forever. I know. I need a doer.
You need more coffee.
No, I just need to.
No, I don't know.
I need to rely on my parasitic abilities and just latch on to an actual doer. So I can be the trusted right-hand man that, just sits there and generates ideas and takes all the credit. So that's my strategy. So that's why I brought John along here. John along. Black Betty. Bam-balam.
Black Betty. Bam-balam.
So overall, would you agree so far with the way that I've constructed this type as describing you?
I think so. I've always thought that I don't really quite fit in with Myers-Briggs. Because I feel like I'm in between those traits.
Yeah,
sometimes.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think everyone is, and the thing about Jungian typology as opposed to Myers-Briggs is not only is it not on a continuum, but it actually says that, hey, everybody uses every single function. So while you and I are TIFE users,
Exactly.
we also are TEFI users, but it's just much further down the chain.
I was going to say that the people that don't use feeling, they have a word for those, psychopaths.
Right, yeah,
So,
which
yeah.
I've been accused of many times.
Hepatitis.
So...
Really?
Oh yeah, all the time, dude.
That's weird.
I know, right? It makes no sense once you get to know me, but I have been accused of it quite a bit.